when you realise you're autistic later in life, it comes with some challenges. One of them is that statistically you're more likely to also have ADHD. Side note on that is that when this is the case, the ADHD can be stronger than the autism slightly, or vice versa. And for me, it used to be the autism, and now it feels like it's the ADHD. There's a reason why I'm wording it this way, saying later in life that you realise, rather than being diagnosed with or any of that nature. Because if you are autistic but you haven't been diagnosed, there's a process that we just tend to go through. We don't watch one YouTube video and go, that's me, I'm autistic. We are very much more diligent than that. And so I'm talking to you as a person who really does believe that they're autistic, because the reality is neurotypical people don't sit there wondering if they're autistic and then do all of this appropriate research that just takes time. Just doesn't happen. And there's also a reason why I mentioned the ADHD and the late diagnosis. Late diagnosis means that you will mask, regardless of gender. Women tend to mask more than guys do, but nonetheless, all of us late diagnosed people, I'm saying diagnosed, but you know what I mean. People who realise they're autistic later in life. I'm trying to not use the word diagnosed because I don't want to exclude people who did their own research. There's a reason why I'm also bringing up the ADHD part. Again, you don't have to be diagnosed. I'm not, but I've got the symptoms. That's what really counts. Do you have symptoms that are related to ADHD? Because if you're like me, and for me it was 10 years ago, mental health issues got really, really bad, a little bit longer than 10 years ago, for various reasons beyond my control, but it got really, really bad. And that's when people started talking about mindfulness and things like that. And I was very resistant to it, but after a while I couldn't ignore who was saying it to me. And it was coming with evidence. It was evidence-based. It was no longer this hairy-fairy la-di-da thing that the hippies do or something. It wasn't that. There was now scientific evidence that this mindfulness thing could actually help people. But I was very resistant to it, and I'll tell you why, because you might actually relate to it. Because the impression I got, and I hear people say this, particularly ADHD people will say this, they're like, oh, my mind goes 100 miles an hour, I'm not slowing that down, I can't quieten that thing, I'm not even going to try. And if that is what you're thinking, guess what? You're absolutely right. And I'm not doing that thing where you're like, oh, if you think you can, you think you can't. That's not where I'm going with this. Because the goal of being mindful or any of these practices, there's many of them and many different ways of doing them, none of which I'm an expert in, by the way. Not one of them is trying to stop your mind or quieten your mind in the way that if you described it that way, that's not what the actual outcome would be. Because also, if you're like me, you'll hear the way some Zen master talks about it, a Buddhist Zen master, or someone like Eckhart Tolle talks about it, and you might be led to believe that, oh, this state that I should be in, and that's a swear word, should is like manipulation. There's some people who say should equals manipulation, and you can do it to yourself. You're thinking I should quieten my mind, I should be able to just sit there and have no thoughts. Well, maybe that's a goal, but I wouldn't exactly say that's the goal, honestly. And even Eckhart Tolle, the way he talks about it, he doesn't call it mindfulness, but he talks about it as this way of getting like 1 or 2 seconds away break from the thoughts. And so I think he's setting the bar very low there, 1 or 2 seconds here and there throughout a day, and then getting better at that. I think that's a really reasonable thing to expect. And okay, story time. I'll tell you where it was or why it was that I started doing this. And for full context, I don't always do this. I forget for a while until I start suffering really badly and have to go back to do it. So this is about 2015 it would have been. And yes, I said, things were pretty bad. I'd almost been put into the psych ward down at Frankston on the Mornington Peninsula. And as such, the anxiety levels were so high, that they were prescribing me Valium. I'd never really been given that by anyone before, but now all of a sudden they're chucking Valium at me. I'm like, oh, great, this is fantastic. And so whenever some event, something happened, it made me everything flare up, which I didn't know was undiagnosed PTSD is one of the things that I've suffered from. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just this thing that happens. Anyway, so this is this thing. I've become somewhat reliant on Valium or diazepam, if you like. And I was taking it every couple of days and then I'd have a day off because I was concerned of getting addicted to it or reliant on it, really. So after 3 days, I'd have one day where I wouldn't take it and then I'd go back again. And I never got addicted to it as a result of that. But I was reliant on it. And so here's the story. This is what the continuation of the story. I guess I'm still telling a story. Anyway, so I'm a guitar teacher. Look, I play guitar. So yeah, not surprising. I teach guitar, or I used to. And I was driving across town to this private student that I had. And I can't remember what happened. I just remember where I was and that I was driving along the road, and all of a sudden this panic just came over me. I forgot to bring any medication. I didn't bring any Valium. See, the mind's going, I couldn't remember it. And then the panic gets worse. That's where it becomes a panic attack. You get that panic feeling and you panic that you're having a panic, and then you start to snowball. It starts to get out of control. So here this is happening. I'm driving, and then so because it's a private student, I've lined this time up. I can only do it this time of the week. He can only do it this time of the week. So I can't pull out. I can't go home. I have to go ahead with this. But I'm like, how am I going to do this when I'm in this way? When I'm panicked, I'm not going to be able to do the lesson. And then luckily up before that point, people had given me YouTube videos of instructional, talking me through meditation. It was mindfulness, but it was meditation. And I think the guy's name was Seely. He had a very unusual voice, but it was awesome. If I can find it, I'll post the link and show you it on the screen. And some people would criticize me for doing a guided meditation because you're not doing it yourself, some people would say, but I found that discouraging. So, and again, that's a should. You should do it yourself. No, I really like this. But so here I am by myself. I don't have the ability to sit there or the time to sit there and play this video, but I remembered some of the stuff that this guy said. Now, I'm going to give you the one that worked for me. It may not work for you. You need to find your own that's going to, in your mind, make sense. I'll give you this one, and there's another one that I use at night sometimes. So remember I said before about the thoughts, you're not trying to stop them because, honestly, you can't. If you think you can, you're fighting a losing battle. You can't fight them. You can't stop them. So what's the alternative? So imagine this. Imagine that the thoughts are a river and the leaves in a river. And most of the time, we're in the river, in the water, with the leaves floating down the river. And we're caught away with the thoughts, with the leaves and the water. And so the idea of this, it sounds really simple, but it's hard to stay this way, is to get yourself so you're on the shore now. You're on the shore and then you're watching the water go by, you're watching the leaves go by, and you're not, this is the important thing, so you're on the shore, you're watching it now, you're not part of it, you're not being dragged along by it, but also any commentary about it should be in the river going past. You can watch the commentary. There'll be commentary about the river. There'll be commentary about this doesn't work. There'll be all sorts of negative things that'll happen. And the idea is to stay on the shore and watch whatever those thoughts, whatever the water, whatever the leaves are, go past. And then you get this detachment from the thoughts, a bit of a break. And again, the other problem that people face, that I faced, was that you having expectation, thinking, I'm going to do this thing and it'll get rid of this unpleasant feeling. It's hard, but if you start thinking that also needs to be one of the thoughts floating down the river. And you can even say it if you need to. Just say to yourself, this is from ACT, to say, I'm having the thought that if I do this, that'll make it go away. And now you've exposed it. It's in the river going down and you're sitting back watching. My mind's having this thought that we can get rid of this by doing this technique. And I hope this makes some kind of sense. And the reality is, this is like I love how Eckhart Tolle puts this stuff. Everything I've just said is like what he says, they're signposts. And you think a signpost that pointing to Helsinki, because I live in Finland. A signpost pointing to Helsinki or Melbourne or New York, wherever you're from. London isn't London. It isn't New York. It isn't Helsinki. It's just the sign telling you which way to go. And that's what all this stuff is. And if you think that you can read a signpost, the things that I'm telling you, which are from other people, not my ideas, if you think that is the thing, you think that is the technique, it's not. It's just saying, hey, if you want to go to Helsinki, London, New York, whatever the thing is, wherever you're from, Melbourne, if you're wanting to go to one of those, this is the direction you go. And this is the key point. You have to go. You have to get up and walk. You have to do the thing. And here's my other bit of advice. Do it poorly. Be like me, stuck in a car, in traffic, having a panic attack with no other option. Think of it this way. It is no other option. You can't fail at it. You can't do it wrong. But if you start 1 second of it, you get 1 second is enough to... Because normally we're so in it. We're so attached to all of the thoughts. They're involuntary a lot of the time. And believe me, when I say I have severe PTSD, I talked about it in the previous video. And I don't want to say, if it can work for me, it can work for you. I hate when people say that. But it doesn't just work for me. It works for people like me and you. And you might not have PTSD, and don't let that be judgment. Don't be, oh, I don't have PTSD, therefore it should be easy. You're shooting on yourself. Please don't do that. And don't forget also, 10 years ago, I didn't have PTSD. Well, I did. I fucking had PTSD, but I didn't know that. So you don't know what you're really going through. You don't know what's really happening to you. Try to not judge or compare yourself to other people, because there's always somebody who has it worse than us. And I've brought this up before, that Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, said this. I love this quote, and it puts people in their place when they try to say, oh, that's, you should be thankful you've got legs. You should be thankful that you're not in the war zone, whatever it might be. And sure, we can be thankful, but that's minimizing, or that's trying to say, oh, you're not even suffering at all. Viktor Frankl said, suffering is like a gas. It fills the container no matter the size. So that's technique one. Give that a go. As I said, it's a signpost. Try it. Don't, and again, set your expectations low. You set your expectations as I'm doing nothing and I'm getting caught, my thoughts are dragging me down the river and that, but now you just try for 1 second where you're sitting on the shore, and you might get sucked in. You get so mesmerizing, the river, you just get sucked in. Next thing you're floating down it again with all the leaves. But that 1 second is a success. Think of it that way. Again, so what I'm really suggesting is to do your own research with this as well. Watch some YouTube videos or whatever. It doesn't have to be YouTube, but I like the YouTube because they always have visual elements and they're longer form usually. But watch a few for yourself, and you might get something that makes sense in your mind. And here is the second one that I used lately. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me last night. And there's a part of me saying, don't tell them, this is ridiculous. And it's going to make it sound like suffering. Is that all how bad things are for you? Are you kidding me? Okay, you can see I'm judging myself now. So, yeah. So, last night, I've gone to bed. I'm tired. I've been up. And then I'm like, okay, I'm tired enough to go to bed now. And I've gone and lied down in bed. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes... And I don't know why this came. There was some... thing on Reddit. I don't spend much time on there. I very rarely comment or do anything on there, but I don't know, was it a few months ago I commented about something about Jack Reacher or something on there, and someone was criticizing the writing of the show, and I'm like, aren't you really criticizing the author, Lee Child? That he's the one who wrote it. And people were criticizing the second season of Jack Reacher. And the thing they were criticising was the writing. So I made a comment about, well, aren't you criticising Lee Child? Maybe you should read the books. But I misspelt Lee. It's L-E-E. For some reason I wrote L-E-I-G-H. I don't know why. And that's fine. I didn't get downvoted or anything. But the problem, and I found this a little bit sneaky, this person, they didn't reply to me, they replied down the chain, but they mentioned me, and they claimed that my comment was rude, and the fact that I misspelled the author's name was a chef's kiss. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they think I'm a complete buffoon now. But more importantly, forget that. The thing is, I'm laying there trying to go to sleep, and now all I can think about is that the fact that this person said that about me. They don't know me. I don't know them. And I'm thinking, I don't think what I said was rude. I need to put them in their place and let them know that what I said wasn't rude. I need to point out that they didn't like my comment, but that doesn't mean that I was being rude. And I also wanted to highlight what you think that, it's funny that someone made an honest mistake and misspelled. I'm normally really good about that, but I must have been tired when I wrote. I don't know, but I've obviously made a mistake. You can't deny that. And on it goes. And now I'm wide awake. And after my recent diagnosis of PTSD, it made me think, is this part of that? Is this stupid crap? Is this PTSD? Because, quite honestly, I feel like I'm under attack. And this is not just an isolated incident. It's something like that. Someone is having a go at me, or they're trying to make me look stupid, in my view. Sure, they're probably just trying to look clever to everyone else, because I think recently they see that people making those comments aren't talking to the person, they're talking to everyone else. But the point of the story is now I'm wide awake and I can't sleep, and then I have to get back out of bed and try to do something to get my mind off it, whilst avoiding distraction, because that's not proven to be helpful. It can be a bit of a problem, because a distraction can become a bit of a crutch. It's just not really good long term or moving forward. So here's the technique that I often use, and normally I'm thinking about this when I go to bed, but I forgot last night, maybe because I spent a few days not having trouble sleeping or something, and I end up forgetting. So here's the technique that works for me, just to give you an idea. And this one sounds bizarre, so fair warning. So what I do, so this is once I get back in bed again, and I know that my brain is going to start firing up, and it most likely will go back to that Reddit thread and that stupid comment. And again, I should point out as well, what's going on is my mind thinks that I'm in a physical altercation, I'm under threat in a real dangerous way. But it's worth noting that my mind does not know. It doesn't know the difference between a comment thread on Reddit and a person coming after me with a machete. It really just does not know. It only knows, what we tell danger, and it believes us. So normally what I do is I try to remember to do this as I get into bed, because going to bed has become this thing that I really hate and want to avoid, because this happens so much. So this is what I do. I lay down and then I shut my eyes, but then I start to imagine. I'm doing it now, so maybe I'll say it more. So I don't know if you notice that when you shut your eyes, there's a certain colour. To me, it's grey, because I'm colourblind, and to me, it's kind of a greyish sort of a colour, but it's probably not that. It's probably nothing like that. But anyway, so that's what I do. And the thing is, what I try to do to get myself to distance myself from those thoughts, like I mentioned about the river before, is now I'm trying to look at the inside of my eyelids, in sort of like the same way you're looking at the edge of the shore. And then by doing that, concentrating on that, but then trying to be aware of the thoughts that will come while I'm doing that. Because again, remembering what I said before, the goal is not to shut your mind down. Your goal is not to stop the thoughts, because you can't. You absolutely cannot stop them. They are going to come. But the idea is now I'm using the inside of my eyelids. I've got them shut. I'm focusing on that. And I'm trying to imagine the thoughts as being here, outside of my head, outside of my eyelids. But because they're thoughts, you can see them. I don't know if this makes any sense, but this is what works for me. And then what will happen though is I'll sit there and I'll have a few seconds, 10 seconds at the most, of me being there watching the thoughts go by. And next thing, I'm in the thoughts. I'm agreeing with them. I'm starting to discuss. I'm starting to philosophize. And then I'm like, hang on. I'm involved. Let's step back and go back to the eyelids, shut my eyes and focus on the inside of my eyelids, and then distance myself and let the thoughts happen. And if you are trying this and you're getting frustrated, it's because the expectation. Again, see that. I'm having an expectation that shutting my eyes, looking the inside of my eyelids is going to result in an outcome. Whereas again, set your bar low, just set it to like, well, the alternative is I sit here and stay awake all night and get up and down and not sleep. Or I can try this and get a few seconds, a couple of seconds here and there, and anything to get you to be not focused on those thoughts. As I said, watch them because you can't stop them, but then start to think of your breathing. So just focus on it and observe what's going on and just go, I'm breathing in now, I'm breathing out, and focusing on that, keeping your attention on your inside your eyelids. There's less power there. The thoughts might still be racing, they might still be going, but as I've said it 5 times now, the goal isn't to stop them. Don't even try. And so this video is done with the intention of helping other autistic ADHD people. Hey, you could be ADHD. Oh, it doesn't matter. This can apply to anyone really. But it's really that I'm wanting to assure those of us out there, the neurodivergent folk, that these techniques that you see other people doing, it doesn't just work for them because it's easier and they can quieten their mind. And it might be, look, that the way people talk about it gives us the wrong impression, or we're not getting the full story. We're not listening to someone who is a Zen master. When you think about it, have you read a book by the Dalai Lama? Have you listened to an audiobook or a podcast by Eckhart Tolle, or any of these people who are spiritual leaders, but put things in a way that makes sense? And that if you get someone who's really good at something and you listen to them, you will go, wow, I get that thing now. It's not as complicated. So anything, jiu-jitsu, mindfulness, any meditation, any of these things. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, this is not real great, or I don't like what that person had to say about it and what have you, go and listen to the really good, I'm not one of them, go and listen to the really good ones and see for yourself and make up your own mind. And I assure you, the good ones, one of my favourites is Eckhart Tolle. I just like the way he explains things, and he's not patronising. He doesn't make out he's some grand master, even though the guy is literally enlightened. He's in this state that, you couldn't get to if you tried to. And as far as he's concerned, he didn't try to. It just kind of happened to him. And he explains it all in his book, how it happened. But his whole thing isn't teaching you how to become enlightened. He's saying, hey, I'm someone who understands this thing. I spent many years studying what happened to me and how I became enlightened, and then now I've used that information to teach the rest of you how to use some of the techniques. So I'll put a few recommendations of videos, or just in the, description of various people that you can go and watch. And this is just to get you off the ground. And hopefully, if you are neurodivergent and you're thinking that you can't do any of this stuff, that's your whole intention. The reason I did this video. There you have it.